Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to This Week in Combat Sports. Ben the Bane Davis here to take you through everything that occurred in the history of MMA from October 8th to October 15th. In 2016, Michael Bisping makes his first title defense against Dan Henderson. Hendo had knocked Bisping out so hard at UFC 100 that the count did not wake up until UFC 105. In a rematch that was 7 years in the making, Bisping would go on to defeat Dan Henderson by decision and retain the middleweight title until being choked out again by GSP. This was also Bisping's final win in the UFC. October 9th, UFC Fight Night in 2013, Rafael Assunção would defeat TJ Dillashaw in their very first meeting, earning Fight of the Night honors. This was just the second pro loss of young Dillashaw's career, and afterwards he would decide that steroids and EPO was the way to go. Mr. Juice would avenge this loss at the historic UFC 200 card. October 10th, 2006, UFC Fight Night 6.5, we saw the trilogy bout between Tito Ortiz and Ken Shamrock go down. Tito TKOs Ken in round number 1, and this was the highest UFC TV-rated event ever at the time until UFC 75, which came a full year later. The Huntington Beach Bad Boy and Shamrock's trilogy took place over 4 years and saw Tito Ortiz KO Shamrock in every single outing. Whoever kept making this fight really fucking hated Ken, which is impressive because Ortiz made a career out of being unlikable. October 11th in 1997, MMA history was made with Pride 1 going down. The inaugural Pride MMA event saw Kimo Leopoldo and Dan Severn fight for half an hour straight to a draw. 30 minutes for nobody to get their hand raised. Notably, Rickson Gracie submits Nobuhiko Takada in the main event with 48,000 people in attendance. This wasn't even Pride's most attended event. Later in 2002 at Pride Shockwave, they recorded 91,000 people in attendance. UFC's record is only 57,000 at UFC 243, and that was almost 20 years after Pride Shockwave. The effect that Pride had on mixed martial arts is one that is still felt to this day, and we can't thank them enough for it. In late 2006, on October 12th, Nate Diaz challenges for the WEC lightweight title at WEC 24 and loses to Hermes Franca via armbar. The first time that the young Diaz had been finished. After this fight, he then went on The Ultimate Fighter Season 5 and notably had his bed pissed on before winning the show, and funnily enough, winning free DirecTV service. What a fucking incentive in 2006 for Dana White to toss at his fighters. Free DirecTV! Gotta love it. October 13th at UFC 153, Anderson Silva TKOs Stephan Bonner in round 1 for the final successful defense of that middleweight championship.
No! No!
Silva would go on to get notably knocked out by Chris Weidman, and Bonner would head to Bellator to lose a split decision to Tito Ortiz. Silva still holds the record for most UFC title defenses at 10 straight, and his reign lasted over 2,400 days. October 14th, UFC 64, we stick with the Spider as he KOs Rich Franklin to become the UFC middleweight champion. Funny how his final title defense came on October 13th of 2012, and he won the title on October 14th in 2006. Prophecy, as they say, for Anderson the Spider Silva. On October 15th in 2016 at UFC Fight Night 97, Alexander Volkanovski was set to finally make his long-awaited UFC debut opposite John Tuck. This was a bout that never manifested as Tuck had to pull out, but at the time Volkanovski's nickname was the Hulk, and then someone told him that there was a height requirement to have that name, and he promptly changed it to the Great and dominated the featherweight division. That's been This Week in Combat Sports. I truly hope you guys have enjoyed, and I can't wait to see you next week to figure out what the fuck happened in the history of MMA.